Welcome to a very special edition of our Point of View show. Today we have a very important guest. We'll be talking to him for the next few moments on a wide variety of issues. Don't forget, the Point of View is your favorite current affairs show on Ghana television. We get the right guests, we ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We'll be right back. Stay with us. So today we are privileged to have the Agbogbo of the Asogli State, Togbe Afede XIV. He's also the president of the National House of Chiefs. He's a many-sided man with various interests and backgrounds. He's agreed to speak to us on a wide variety of issues. Togbe, thank you for talking to us on the Point of View on Citi TV.
Thank you.
I believe congratulations are in order. Only a few days ago you were maintained as a member of the 5 for the Volta National House of Chiefs. What kind of process was that? How was it?
Well, the Constitution provides for representation of each regional House of Chiefs at the National House of Chiefs, and provides that each region elects 5 representatives. Okay, so that process has gone on throughout the country, and Volta happened to be the last to have done its own. And I'm very happy that I've been retained as one of the 5
another 5
to represent
years,
Volta
4
region,
years.
4 years at
Another 4
national level. Now the National House of Chiefs has an expanded 80-member house, up from 50, because of the creation of 6 additional regions. It's quite an exciting process, very, very, very fairly done, quite transparent, and maybe the nation has something to learn from us.
You're also the president of the National House of Chiefs, and we understand there will be elections in a few days. Are you offering yourself for president for another term?
Yes, we have our elections on November 12th, and I'm offering myself for re-election to serve the House as president.
And this is 1 chief, 1 vote. Is that how it works?
Yes, so there will be like 80 votes at stake.
Wow.
So you need 40 plus 1, effectively,
Wow.
to get the nod to be president. So we'll be electing president and vice.
Do you have to campaign at all? How does it work?
The National House of Chiefs, comprise people coming from all over the country. And sometimes your colleagues may not know you very well. But more importantly, because the new house is assembling for the first time on 12th November to do the election. There are some people who have never met you before and whom you have never met before. Okay? If the house has been expanded from 50 to 80, you bet that close to half or more will be new members, because some of the 50 original members may not be returning. So I expect that it will be a house that would have majority new members. So it's important to let them know you ahead of voting day. So there is some amount of campaigning, but not the type that we see in partisan politics. This is more kind of very subtle by chiefs who are supposed to be happy of a country, aspire for peace and unity and all of that. So our kind of campaigning is a little more.
It's more lobbying than overt campaigning.
Well, you can say lobbying.
Behind the
more
scenes.
Lobbying than campaigning, even though I hear the term campaigning used a lot. But
a lot of people don't know. How close are our chiefs? How often do you talk to each other? And how, because you have your own traditional areas that you try and bring development to, how does it work? How often do you talk to Sede Otumfo?
Well, since I became a chief, I try to encourage interaction among chiefs beyond constitutional provisions. When I mean constitutional provisions, I'm talking about regular official meetings. Those do not promote the kind of friendship that I would like to see. So when I became a chief, I did something probably nobody had done before. I toured a lot of the country and, introduced myself to many of the chiefs. I went through the palaces of the 15 permanent members of the Volta Association at the time. I came to Gamanche Palace, I was at Ochengene's Palace, I was at Ofunfo's Palace. So it's something that I have tried to promote since I became a chief. And after I became a president of chiefs, I tried to promote that as well. You know, so I personally attended other regions' meetings. I'm talking about outside of Volta region. The idea was to bring the National Council chief closer to the people. Okay, and the expectation is that the regional president will do the same, attending traditional council meetings. So there will be a lot of interaction. And I also had the privilege of hosting a historic meeting of the National Council of Chiefs in Tamale, the first in the history of the institution. And the intention is to do that more often, so that you know, we'll take National Council of Chiefs closer to the people. We expect the regional presidents to do the same. There's the traditional councils, you know. I also am an advocate of chiefs attending traditional festivals of their colleagues. And so when we have the Asogli Tezan Yam Festival, for instance, I try to invite as many chiefs as possible. And I'm quite privileged to be able to have many of them responding positively.
We have about 43 days to the election. And when the politicians go around, some of your colleague chiefs endorse them very openly. Even this week, there have been stories like that. Does that worry you?
It's worrying because as President of the National Council of Chiefs, I always reminded them about the need for us to respect constitutional provision that bars us from participating in partisan politics. As chiefs, we are just like any other citizen, affected by what goes on, okay? And so we have the right to comment on issues. Indeed, people look up to us to comment on issues, okay? So we can do that without necessarily taking a partisan position, even though when you comment on issues and then it seems to favor a particular party's stand, you are seen as supporting the other, which is not the case, you know. So we are entitled to comment on issues because we are just as affected as anybody else. But we must stop short of, you know, supporting parties, let alone endorsing candidates. So I've not been happy about it, and it's something that I've always reminded my colleagues about. And I think the parties themselves need to, you know, advocate for it, because when a particular party or party's candidate visits a chief and the chief endorses him, he is happy. When they say when another chief endorses another party, then they complain. You know, so we all have to advocate.
But it seems to be getting more rampant these days, and almost every day when a candidate visits a traditional area, inevitably you get an endorsement. In fact, some people say the candidates choose to use the routes where they know they'll get endorsement. Does that, to what extent does that undermine the institution, if the fact that it's becoming more rampant?
You see, it does undermine the institution, because you see, when we speak, we must be seen to be focusing on the truth, on what we believe to be the truth, nothing but the truth. But once you start endorsing a party, then anything you say can be looked at, you know, through political lenses, and therefore then it, you know, takes away from the importance of what you say, you know. And as people who must be able to bring, you know, parties together for peaceful settlement of disputes when they arise, once you start adopting a stand that looks like supporting a particular political party, then your credibility to perform that important role becomes undermined. You know, so it's not really something that we support. And indeed, our code of ethics frowns on that. I think going forward, the National Council of Chiefs has to be a lot more proactive in promoting this part of the Constitution. You know, if need be, even probably sanctioning chiefs who go foul of that provision, because you are effectively bringing the whole institution of chieftaincy into disrepute.
And the view is also that chiefs being sometimes the buffer we need when politics become rancorous, that gets reduced. How concerned are you about the type of politics we do these days? Because it looks as if a lot of institutions have been split on party lines. Churches, media houses, even chiefs are tagged. How concerned are you about the increasingly vitriolic nature of our politics?
You see, it's most unfortunate. You see, when political parties begin to look at those who have different opinions as enemies, we have a big problem. Okay, and that is one of the difficulties in our politics. Secondly, when politicians forget what the true import of politics is, and they begin to look at their selfish interests, then of course, what I would call the willingness to tolerate opposing views, okay, becomes completely lost. Okay, it begins to become cutthroat kind of politics, where at stake is not the opportunity to serve the people, but the opportunity to enrich yourself.
Just a quick point. Do you think this type of politics affected the institution that you run, House of Chiefs, in the sense that in the past 3 years, there have been some issues that have come up that have been divisive? For example, you expressed views on the way the consultation was being done for the new regions to be formed. That generated a lot of heat. The issue about the referendum for partisan participation at the local level, some chief came up to say your position was not the position of the House. Was that politics, or that was just an administrative issue in the House?
Okay, first of all, let me talk about the reorganization of the regions. Okay, I was not against regional reorganization. I was for the process being conducted consistent with constitutional provisions. That was it. All my argument had to do with who was entitled to vote. That's the principal one. Okay? Is it just those who are targeted for the new region?
Or the whole region?
Whole.
Okay.
The Constitution says that when you alter the boundary of a region, there must be votes. So when you look at it critically, everybody, you know. But that's water under the bridge for now. But unfortunately, again, like I said, you know, we have to accept that we can all have different viewpoints. The fact that I held a different viewpoint about how that process should be conducted should not make me an enemy. Neither should that viewpoint that I expressed be given a political interpretation. But that's unfortunately what happened. Because my viewpoint was different, it was like Togbe was against the government. No, it was about the government. It was about what was the best way for us to do the regional organization. Assuming we all agreed that there was a need to do regional organization, that was the end. The question is, how do we get there? And I've always said that we will all be different. I mean, many of us will be different in terms of how we pursue the objective. Even when the objective is the same, we just have to remember that we are talking about the same objective. But naturally, we will differ when it comes to how we should get there. And that is just...
So that's clear. What about
that's an important part of humanity anyway. If it wasn't the case, we wouldn't need politics. We wouldn't need parties, so to speak. We wouldn't need parties.
Local government. What was your view also seen from a political lens? Because you did not think it was good, that referendum that was to have been had, which was eventually...
Okay. Yeah, let me put it this way. First of all, many people didn't even understand the purpose of the referendum.
Okay.
People thought it was a referendum to approve the election of MMDCEs, meaning municipal, metropolitan, this. That was not it. That was a subject matter before Parliament, okay, where the president wanted to give up his right to appoint. The referendum was about introducing partisanship to the lowest levels. And at the National House of Chiefs, we've always been concerned about the fact that the Constitution barred us from partisan politics, but did not make any provision for us to participate in the political process. So we've always advocated for being given the right to nominate up to 30% of members of assemblies, okay, which we have been working towards. Now, getting partisan politics to the lowest level just excludes us altogether in the first place. So I don't think any chief would want that to happen. So the chiefs were
unanimous in that view?
We were unanimous in that view because a paper was presented by our legal committee that we adopted and presented to the Ministry of Local Government. The press release we issued actually extracted from that. So basically, it wasn't about being against government. It was about being opposed to the idea of introducing partisan politics at the lowest level. If that referendum was being promoted under the NDC, we have the same opinion. It was being promoted under MPP, the same opinion. So it was something that was party blind. We were completely, it was party neutral. It was more about whether that was good for our country, and we thought it wasn't. And you and I know the kind of politics that we do at the national level. Okay? The kind of acrimony that we promote. We don't want to take that kind of acrimony to the local level.
This is still the point of view. We're talking to the president of the National House of Chiefs, who is also the Agbogbo of the Asogli State, Togbe Afede XIV. We started by talking about chieftaincy. When we come back, we'll discuss some serious economic issues and some national concerns. Stay with us.
Kwesi, morning. I just sent you Airtel to go money from my new number. We delivered 2 healthy kids last night. Congrats. Have you heard? Kwesi has
2 kids. Have you heard?
My son has 2 kids. Kwesi. No. Now your sister almost 7. Have you heard the news about the missing chicken?
Have you heard? Get free calls and free Airtel Tigo money transfers for 6 months on new Airtel Tigo SIMs. Get a SIM.
Looking really good.
See, guys, the thing will do all. So give me 4 more. We could do more.
This be what they pour me. 4 more for what?
Must answer the guy. 4 more for what?
4 more to do more for you.
4 more to steal more excavators and our money?
Bisabio.
Or 4 more to kill Ghanaian businesses?
No!
4 more for family and friends?
4 more for neglected projects?
4 more for Sakawa and broken promises?
Opana, and now 4 more to borrow more with nothing to show. No way.
Hello, 4 more for lawlessness, intolerance, and harassment of the media and the political opponent. I beg you.
You make a cry self. What happened to the murders of Ahmed Swali?
What about the members of the Delta Force where they attacked the court for Kumasi?
Where them also brutalized innocent citizens for hours West Wogon. Even you the one that 4 more.
4 more for more corruption scandals like the PDS, Australian visa fraud scandal, Canapse fraud scandal, then PPE, don't call me contract for sale by the incompetent clearing agents. 4 more to steal more.
No!
Away! 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 Away!
Vote John Mahama and NDC for jobs and prosperity for all.
Hi babe, am I seeing the series?
Can you see me now?
I can, but wait, who's calling you?
I'm sure that's my mom.
I'm sure it's one of those girls.
Wanna have an apple?
Are you trying to change the
It's been a while since we last linked up, since we shared our news and told our stories.
Last week it was okay, but this week is very, very low. What's your suggestion?
We would look into that.
Makola Market has been closed down for cleaning and sanitation.
Since we last celebrated together.
Don't buy anything. Don't claim 5 Ghana credits. Free!
From 1st October, get 5 Cities airtime total whenever you buy any 3 bottles of these Guinness Ghana products. Simple, go chop and kasa. Just dial *1000* and the code under the crown, followed by the hash key, and your free airtime will drop. Let's raise our glasses and link up again. Offer is valid while stocks last. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back to The Point of View. Our guest is Togbe Afede XIV, President of the National House of Chiefs. Togbe, thank you for staying with us. For those who don't know, you are an accomplished entrepreneur and a businessman. You've taught even economics and different things. One of the key issues that have come up is about Ghana's financial sector and the fact that we are going through a big reform. Some people think that Ghana's economy is over-financialized and the financial sector has not driven the transformation we need. You would know this better than most people. What's your general view of the financial sector and the role it's played in bringing development?
You know, Ghana's financial sector has come a long way. You recall that, reforms of this sector started, in the early 90s. When the government embarked on a program to create, our stock exchange. Our stock exchange opened its doors in 1990, end of 1990. Yes. So we're talking about a stock that is like 30 years old now. Then there were the financial sector reform programs that, that aimed at, deepening the financial sector and all of that. Out of that emerged a lot of organic institutions, some of which have almost become extinct. The Discount House, for example, which were, precursors to the explosion of savings and loans, finance house arena and all of that. I think the financial sector has really done well for this country, notwithstanding the shortcomings that we noted recently. It was all a matter of better regulation, better enforcement of laws. Okay, the human being is, really pragmatic generally. Okay, the human being will take advantage of situations, that present themselves. Okay, so the way to keep people in line is to ensure that the laws, the rules are enforced. I think that simply was what was lacking. Were the approval processes, for banking licenses observed, and going forward after licenses were given, were the necessary prudential requirements enforced? Subject to all of this, I think the banking sector, financial in general, has done extremely well. Ghanaians have demonstrated entrepreneurship in that sector. So we saw the emergence of several savings and loans companies, several finance houses.
My pushback to you is you were on the Bank of Ghana board for 10 years, 2003 to 2013. In 2009, you were part of the economic transition team. You are part of the people who set up our financial sector. Citi House is just across from here. You were a co-founder of Data Bank. So is it that the people, when you advise them, they don't take it, or you didn't have that much leverage? Because to be on the Bank of Ghana board for 10 years, that spans Kufuor, Mills, and Mahama.
It was these arguments that I made, okay? And the late gentleman, Samir, rest in peace, wrote a nice, beautiful letter to me, supporting my arguments, but asking that we tone the argument down, lest it reflects badly on the image of the central bank. It was those arguments that led former President Kufuor to appoint me to the board of Bank of Ghana.
On which board you served for another 10 years?
Yes. And I've always advocated for, a more forward-looking interest rate, analysis, okay? So that we don't inadvertently import the past into the future, what I call the self-fulfilling prophecy. We've always been in a high-interest environment. We always blame government spending. But at the end of the day, a chunk of government spending also goes to pay interest rates. Pay interest costs. So government borrows at high interest rates. Government interest costs a chunk of its expenditure, current expenditure. Okay, then we turn out to blame government again for, indiscipline.
Does the current finance minister agree with you on this? You founded Data Bank with him. He's your friend, I believe.
Well, when I was making those arguments, I was not at Data Bank. I was at SAS.
Yeah,
okay,
but
I've never failed
in economics.
I've never failed to make my viewpoint known.
Does he agree with you? Both of you are at the Yale Business School. Does he agree with your view? Because he's the finance minister, so now the fiscal side.
I've never met anybody who disputed the fact that our interest rates have been too high.
Really?
I've never met anybody who disputed the fact that our interests have been too high.
So what did they dispute?
Time was when even some of the foreign investors were shocked about the opportunity they had in Ghana. Is what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you adjust the yields on in our money market, okay, if you adjust it for Citi depreciation, the real return is still very high. Why are we doing this to ourselves? And we expect businesses to mobilize money and industrialize this country. We expect people to borrow money and risk in agriculture. It just will not happen. You see what I'm saying? It just would not happen. We want to industrialize. We're talking about one district, one factory. Okay? Where do people get the required capital from? Or then put it the desired capital, which is capital at the right price. You see what I'm saying? Businessmen don't come with a lot of money in their pockets that they invest. A little of equity, a little of debt, that goes to fund a company, okay? But the interest rates that we have in this market make it almost impossible to do business profitably. That's why you look around, a lot of companies are collapsing. Is that to find Ghanaian companies that are 50 years old? But you see, the foreign-owned companies are able to borrow from abroad, the support of their parents. You see, so we have a very
our domestic businesses are disadvantaged. Some people feel the financial sector reform further disadvantaged indigenous financial institutions to the. So the structure has been made to be foreign dominated more. What are your thoughts about how that whole process was managed, the financial sector reform, the so-called cleanup?
Oh, the recent cleanup.
Yes, the recent one, not historic. I know you've mentioned FinSap and all those. I'm talking about this particular one where 9 banks became, some were taken over, or UT Capital became GCB, that one. Yes.
Well, I've said it before, that process was not managed well. Okay? If you have cross-indebtedness among several institutions, you want to open their books and see where you can do set-offs in the first place. You see what I'm saying? Otherwise, if I owe you 10 cedis, you also owe someone, 9 cedis, who also owes another 8 cedis, then 7 cedis. If I fail to pay you, you are in trouble. If you fail to pay the other party, it's in trouble. So if suddenly all of us are collapsed, we all are gone. On the other hand, if we examine our books, it will realize that, oh, if Togbe pays you the 10 cedis, everybody else is covered. Okay, then through set-off, all of that is done. Maybe Togbe becomes the only person who goes, not all of us. I think it was, there was a lot of mistake in the way it was handled. So by the time probably they realized, it was too late to do it differently. So you saw many companies that collapsed, okay, who had debts that are owed by other companies, which also...
So the systemic risks that they were trying to solve for, actually they worsened, because they were trying to say that some of these companies, the way they are, if we let them remain, they will contaminate everybody else. So we better take them off. But you're saying that because of the interconnectedness,
you created a difficult situation. You could have avoided a lot of those. You see what I'm saying? Like I just simplified it. I owe you 10, you owe somebody 9. You see, you are not necessarily bad. The one you owe 9 is not necessarily bad. The one who is owed 8 is not necessarily bad. You see what I'm saying? But on the face of it, you are in trouble. Everybody's in trouble. But if we took our time and study the books and do the necessary setups, we would limit the problem.
All right.
You see, otherwise, you see, the moment you close a particular bank, you're creating many problems. One, that bank is no more even functional enough to be able to even chase those who owe it. And indeed, those who owe it might just feel, wow, this is a manna from heaven. The bank is no more. I probably don't have to pay. You see what I'm saying? But if you took your time, maybe you stop them from doing further lending. Okay, you put some controls on them. They probably can go and chase those monies. Okay, and then settle their indebtednesses. But once you close the bank down suddenly, what are you doing? Those who owe the bank are not going to come and volunteer to pay. They think that they have free money. They you know, it's almost like a debt forgiveness to many of them. Meanwhile, the bank that you've closed down also does not have the staff anymore to even go and chase those monies. So a more gentle approach would have meant, you know, less adverse consequences for all of us. At the end of the day, maybe not X banks would have collapsed, maybe X minus Y banks, a small number of banks. And therefore, the crisis we had and the cost to government would have been a lot less.
Now that we are here, what did you actually think of the Agyapa deal? There were so many media reports, and now that you are here, what was your concern, or what is your concern about the Agyapa royalty deal?
Well, subsequent to my making the first comments that I made, well, they were the only comments I made anyway, about Agyapa, the Minister of Finance requested, you know, or sought audience with the National House of Chiefs. So he came to National House of Chiefs and presented, you know, made a case for the Agyapa deal. Nananum of the House agreed that, yes, there's a need to raise money to fund development projects. That there was no question. But Nananum raised a lot of concerns. Among them, one, timing. One question was, why now? When we get into the end of the year, election, and etc. One important issue somebody raised. Very key issue that was raised, and I'll quote the word that was used, the opaqueness of the whole process. Why were things shrouded in secrecy? Okay? What agreements have been signed to start with? We didn't have those agreements, and we're not sure that those agreements are publicized. Okay? Why incorporation in a tax haven? Now, tax havens are traditionally been notorious as places where, you know, people who wanted to hide money incorporate their businesses. So why a tax haven for a national company, so to speak, or a national project? Who are the directors? Who are the directors? And again, one important question was raised. If you said that Minerals Income Investment Fund was going to own majority of Agyapa, how come that they were contributing only 2 members to the 9-member board of directors? 9-member board of directors was the intention. Why was the Mineral Income Investment Fund going to contribute only 2? So they're going to be minority on the board. So questions were raised. Why, you know, a tax haven? What kind of agreements have been signed? You know, some agreements were signed. Have they been done transparently? Who are the directors? And in any case, why only 2 for the government side, which was supposed to be majority, and 7 for the minority side? Okay, all these things issues were raised. Valuation, how was it going to be done? Okay, to ensure that Ghana was not
so these are lots of questions. Have these questions been answered at all?
So these questions were asked. Beyond that, you know, remember the question also, who are going to be those shareholders? Can they be known? Tax havens don't normally maintain shareholders registers that you can just go and access and know who shareholders are. And if you're following recent developments in our company law, you know, the new companies code, the one that was passed last year, seeks to ensure more transparency in business affairs. In particular, transparency when it has to do with beneficial ownership, which is why the research department itself is just about, you know, establishing a beneficial ownership register. Yes. So we are talking about transparency right at home. We want to be sure that when you set up a company, we know who the beneficial interest holders are, even if you are the face of it. Are there some people behind? So if we are trying to do this locally, why would you take a national asset and send it to a
So those are the questions.
Let me just
take a short break.
add two more quick ones on this particular one. There were questions also about now after we've sold, you know, the shares and we got money, what about future? What monies come to us annually? So what was going to be the dividend policy? Those questions were asked. But a very important one that somebody asked was this. After we've sold the shares, can we later reverse it? Because the concern is this. We already are worried that our mining sector is dominated by foreigners or foreign interests. And we have only 10% carried interest. That ends relative to us. We are now trying to share even that carried interest with foreigners, you know. And when you sell shares, you can't reverse it. So the question was, why couldn't we do something like ESLA, where the expected royalty flows are securitized, monetized today, as opposed to sell the interest into forever? And the question also is, why not something that is like a quasi equity, maybe a preference share, which can be redeemed later on? You remember our company's code provides for national ownership of state resources and their development for the benefit of the people. So these were important concerns that were raised. And the general opinion was that this had raised a lot of questions, had a lot to be desired, you know.
Togbe, we'll take a short break. This is still the point of view. We're talking to Togbe Afede the 14th. He's the president of the National House of Chiefs, discussing a wide range of issues. Stay with us.
Nivea Men Deep Antiperspirant with the power of black carbon formula. 48-hour protection from sweat and bacteria. For a deep, clean feeling that lasts. New Nivea Men Deep Antiperspirant. Nivea Men. It starts with you. Official sponsor of Real Madrid.
There is nothing more precious than life. As a driver, your precious life and those of your passengers are in your hands at all times. So do not overspeed, don't drink and drive, no wrong overtaking, and if you're tired, stop and rest. Always be on the lookout for pedestrians and stop for them to cross, especially children. The National Road Safety Authority wants us all to look out for ourselves, protect each other, and arrive alive. Thank you.
Your family needs you alive. Everyone needs you alive. Arrive alive.
Hi, babe. Am I seeing the scene?
Can you see me now?
I can. But wait, who's calling me?
I'm sure that's my mom.
I'm sure it's one of those girls.
Wanna have an apple?
I'm trying to change this.
It's been a while since we last linked up, since we shared our news and told our stories.
Last week it was okay, but this week is very, very low. What would suggest?
We would look into that.
Makola Market has been closed down for cleaning and sanitation.
Since we last celebrated together.
Don't buy anything. Don't claim 5 Ghana credits. Free. Papa no see and go back.
From 1st October, get 5 Cities airtime total whenever you buy any 3 bottles of these Guinness Ghana products. Simple, go chop and kasa. Just dial *1000* and the code under the crown, followed by the hash key, and your free airtime will drop. Let's raise our glasses and link up again. Offer is valid while stocks last. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back. This is The Point of View, a special edition with Togbe Afede XIV, President of the National House of Chiefs, Agbogbo of the Asogli State. A lot of you may not know this, but Togbe has interest in all kinds of things. So just to give you a quick flavor, he's the founder of SAS Group. He is the founder and chairman of Africa World Airlines, which is now a regional airline. He is the founder of Sunon Asogli Power. They produce quite a lot of power. They are the only fully gas-powered power plant adding to our power mix. He's a board member of Ensign. Accra Hearts of Folk is also a board member there, board chairman actually of Hearts of Folk. And of course, as I said, he's been on the Bank of Ghana board for many years. And so really a man of many parts. I was reading your tribute to your mother, and this is a digression. And I'm wondering how you coped with her death. I think it's a year ago. You talked about how she used to sing hymns. She baptized you, Christian background. Now you're a traditional ruler. Also a hardcore businessman, dealing with investments in the sub-region. You are quite an enigma to decode all the different parts. How do you find equanimity in all the different things you do?
Well, the good news is that my motivation for business has not really been money. You know, I have a passion for development. I have a passion for the development of my country and of Africa. Trust me, when I came back, when I finished Yale, I didn't work for one day. You don't meet many people like that. I came home at a time when it was so difficult. Somebody called me and said, James, I heard you're trying to commit suicide. I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you going to Ghana? You know, why won't you work? So I came. And like they say, I bent the bridge behind me. I knew I wasn't going to go back. So I have a passion for the development of my country and the continent, okay? Coincidentally, I became a chief, and it made it even more important for me to work towards bringing the wealth of my people. As I sit here, I don't have one foreign account in my name. Yes, that's what I'm saying, that mine is more one of development. So I sit back and I look at the country and I try to identify areas of need where I could make a difference.
On that point, what is the key to getting the right kind of investment? So for example, when you partner with the Chinese to do Asogli or with Africa World Airlines, a lot of people feel that we are there for the exploitation. So they come in and it's a fertile ground for them to make tons of money. What's the key to getting good investment that brings development but that doesn't exploit us?
Well, first of all, to be able to attract people to work with you, you must make yourself trustworthy, okay? And when I first went to China, you can't believe it, my very first to China, I went with 26 people, maybe in 27th. I tried the opportunity to open doors for others. So I had 27 man, of course including female, delegation. 2005, when few people were going to China, those days you go to the Chinese embassy, it was empty. Chinese were very impressed, but they couldn't believe that I was going to China with so many people. So I had a wonderful reception in China. And what I had to tell them about my purpose for coming, you know, made a lot of impact on them. So we developed friendship right from there. The guy who was taking us on the tour, when we were leaving to cross to Hong Kong and then embark on the return journey, he wept watching us go. So we developed friendship. We developed trust. They didn't see me as one, you know, hard-nosed businessman coming to look for money. I talk about development, coming to learn from the Chinese so I could bring development to my country. And that really touched them, you know. So then one deal after another and then the next.
So trust is the key.
So trust is key. And for me, as I do my business, I am fulfilling my old dream of bringing development to my people. But even more importantly, I'm serving my purpose as a chief. Because if I have to be relevant, and as I've always described my colleagues and nations of chiefs, if the issue of chieftains has to be relevant, we must identify the needs of our people. And the most important is what? Development. That brings income.
Has Asogli power been worth it? I think it's 2008 that it started, 2007. So it's 13 years. And
Asogli power has been phenomenal. Phenomenal. The biggest power plant in the country after Akosombo. And of course the biggest IPP. The most efficient IPP. And with good intentions of even expanding into coal, wind, and solar. So personally,
but the chamber is asking for payment. That's what I'm asking.
Well, it's extremely fulfilling.
For you personally.
Extremely fulfilling. And indeed, I doff my hat for my partners that they could survive several years where they had to, cope with a lot of overdue debt on their books, which hurts the parent company, which is on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange. Okay? And for me, for them to even want to do more in Ghana, notwithstanding, okay, attest to a kind of relationship we have, the trust we have developed. Okay? So, development, chieftaincy, they are quite inseparable to me. The important thing is how to make the time.
But finally, on that point, is our power sector in a good shape? Because a few years ago, we didn't have enough power. Now we are told we have too much power and we are paying too much. What's your quick overview of the power sector?
I think the power sector should be seen more from the policies that we can take. Okay. Our streets are dark. If we light all our streets, we won't have enough power.
No matter how much it costs?
Valco is not producing. Okay, if Valco starts producing, they alone require about 375 megawatts of power. 375 megawatts of power. It means they alone could take phase 2 of Asogli power. Okay, so there's a lot of latent demand, hidden demand.
But if the price is not good, if the cost of generating is too much, it doesn't make economic sense. So I think the problem is not just the fact that we have excess power, but at what cost?
But you see, if you're not producing, it becomes even worse. It means you have a small generation, okay, taking care of all of that overhead and what have you. Okay. So the more we produce, okay, the lower the per unit cost. Okay. Once we can take advantage and light our cities, you see what I'm saying? Create that kind of relationship between Valco and VRA that allows, Valco to enjoy power from the hydro sources. Then we'll be fully utilizing all of these resources to our benefit, okay? But Burkina Faso needs a lot of power, and power is more expensive there than here. Why shouldn't we be able to export power to them? Okay. But now that the grid links us to, to Burkina Faso. But coming to the point you made, yes, the sector is in difficulty because the IPPs are choking under a lot of debt. Even yesterday we had a meeting of the chamber, and that is a big problem. And we are still talking to government about the need for the burden to be reduced, so that we can assure availability of power. Power is key
for development,
for the economy, and everything else comes to a standstill if there's no power.
Togbe, 17 years ago this month was when you were sworn in, and in your speech, you were very clear about what you wanted to do for the Volta region in general. When you see the Volta region now, having been Agbogbo Mefia for 17 years, how would you rate the region's economic performance under comparing that to the vision you had?
Yeah, Volta has a lot of potential, particularly in the tourism sector. And many of us believe from many studies that have been done that there's a lot of mineral wealth in the Volta region, which unfortunately have not been exploited, which makes it a little bit difficult. One industry spawns another. So if there are no resources, it just gets difficult to get started. As part of my strategy, I established a link between Volta region and a province in China. The governor himself was in the Volta region to sign cooperation agreement. Okay, we're going to establish our first experimental rice farm in the Agyapa area. We ran into land issues. We had a project in the center and a project in the north of Volta, now OT. Okay, that dream is not lost yet. We were doing that through an agency I established, Volta Development Agency, that is being run under the aegis of the Volta Regional House of Chiefs. Okay, beyond that, personally, I have plans to establish a pilot training school in Ho.
A pilot training school?
Yes, and I've been talking with Africa World Airlines to establish an MRO, a maintenance,
is that
repair.
The sort of solution you are proposing, because the airport doesn't seem to be generating?
The airport is just an asset that we must exploit to the fullest. Okay, we for some time were waiting for the go-ahead, which would have meant, yes, information that government had taken over the airport and therefore it was available. Okay, so that we could explore the possibility of commercial operations by Africa World Airlines. So about a couple of weeks ago, we went at the airport to assess, and then we've sent.
So it's not a white elephant. The airport.
It's not
the
a
whole
white
airport.
It's not a white elephant. It can serve commercial purposes. Okay, can serve people traveling from Kumasi to Lome, for example. They can go through. That's a possibility, and of course, people travel from home every day to Kumasi, to Accra, to Takoradi, to Tamale. And Africa World Airlines goes to all these places. So apart from the commercial, we're talking about using it to, train pilots, making it a base for the maintenance of aircraft, which we are exploring. Beyond that, it serves other purposes in emergencies. For instance, when recently some young army recruits had an accident on the mountains of Agyapa, that airport came in handy. But for that airport, can you imagine taking about 22 soldiers in ambulances on this rough road to Accra or to Kolebu for that matter, or 37 for that matter? So it's not a white elephant, okay? But we are trying to make the best out of it. And its operation will have spillover effects on many other things, the tourism sector and etc. But apart from that, Volta region can still support, small industries. And those we are looking at. A limiting factor when it comes to locals, as I've said, it's not easy. The cost of capital is always an important bottleneck. Not affecting Volta region only, the whole country. But I'm also looking forward to the completion of the Eastern Corridor Road.
The road or the rail?
Both. Eastern Corridor Road and the railway line. The railway line in particular is supposed to pass through Ho. Once that happens, it also limits the distance. Reduce the distance between Ho and Accra for the import of raw materials and for the transport of finished goods. So the road network itself is a limitation. It's a bottleneck. I mean, if the roads were good, Accra Ho you could do in 2 hours. When I returned from the US in 1989, 90, 91, 92, we were doing Ho Accra sometimes less than 2 hours.
Wow.
Yes.
Driving within speed limit?
Well, at that time, there were not potholes.
Okay.
But there was not a lot of traffic.
And there was a lot of towns with...
Exactly, so particularly between, Afienya, motorway and Michel Camp.
Okay. And now there's traffic
Now there's no traffic there. And then the potholes, the ramps, and etc. It doesn't make it easy to make a case for the location of industry in the Volta region as opposed to Accra Tema, where the port is next to you, the market is right there. You know what I'm saying? If notwithstanding the fact that location in Ho will grant you some tax rebates, which is available to all industries located outside the capitals, but it may not be able to compensate for the difficulty that the road presents. And the fact you have to import raw materials and also take out finished goods to the market.
So Togbe, in view of your passion for the region, I'm sure you were pretty annoyed with the secessionist noise in the region. That's where I want to end. What do you think is going on, and how do you think that matter should be resolved?
You know, and when this matter first, when this thing erupted, that Faithful Friday, we're going to have a meeting at the National House of Chiefs, you know, and the Minister of Security called me that morning, and I was on the way to Kumasi. Luckily, I also came to Kumasi to report it to National House of Chiefs. I made a statement that condemned, you know, the violence, okay, and that, you know, emphasized the need for us to keep this country together in unity and in peace, so we can continue to be the, you know, the great attraction to investors that we have always been, you know. Subsequently, we tried to find out what's happening. First of all, I didn't know about Western Togoland. I knew about Homeland, Steady, whatever, you know. But we are not happy with it. Voltarians have been extremely peaceful. And I know the Homeland Steady group have always advocated for peaceful pursuit of whatever their goals are. So we have just been so surprised about so many things. The fact that people were able to mount these huge billboards and nobody saw them when they were doing it. The fact that they've been able to hoist a flag at a
Regional Coordinating Council
and nobody saw them. Those have really worried us, okay? Meanwhile, there are a lot of, you know, barriers that you cross to get to various points in the Volta region. Traveling from Ho to Agyapa, for example, you meet so many barriers. How could people travel with huge billboards through these barriers and not be noticed? Those are questions that have worried us, okay? That was why when the Volta House of Chiefs met, the standing committee, we raised those questions and also asked about identity of those who have been arrested, because we wanted to be part of investigating what really was going on ourselves as chiefs. Anyway, when the national security chiefs came to meet us, subsequent to these happenings, we proposed a joint committee of government and the chiefs to investigate this thing. So that's something we are looking at, and I know how the presidents, the leadership of the House of Chiefs intends to communicate those views that were expressed in that meeting formally to government, so that we don't just leave those issues to die, okay? There are also suggestions about the need for a whole presidential commission to investigate, so we understand exactly what the hell was going on. You see what I'm saying? Because still many of us are at a loss. Where are these people coming from? What are their identity? And I get a lot of phone calls from my people. You know, the last time it was about a group of young people who had arrived at a hotel and they were wondering who the hell they were, you know. So I just was so apprehensive that maybe we'll hear something again the following morning. Unfortunately, this message came to me at 10:30, and I couldn't get some of my chiefs in Ho to let them know what was coming to me. So there is an important need for this to be investigated, whether some bipartisan commission or some parliamentary, whatever, or a presidential commission, preferably a joint Volta House of Chiefs government kind of body to investigate. You see what I'm saying? So that we have really transparent investigation of what exactly is happening. Let me say, for the avoidance of doubt, that the chiefs are not happy. And I know the majority of people are not happy about violence in the Volta region. We want to contribute to the peace of this country, not to, you know, acrimony, war, or whatever. Okay, so it is very, very important that these things are investigated, so we can know what exactly, you know, is happening in our region. We are very committed to peace, but let me also add that, you know, this kind of commission is very important. Presidential commission is very important. Okay, so that those who are doing those things, okay, and others who have become more identified, like the Homeland Study Group, they can come up with their grievances. You see what I'm saying? So that kind of commission can help promote dialogue as well. You see, I mean, it's better for us to do it that way than to think that, a resort to war can be, it's never a good solution for this country. It will damage the image of this country. Once you get there, your image as a peaceful country is destroyed.
Forever.
It takes a long time to redeem it. You see what I'm saying? If there's an outbreak of violence today in a place that you have been, you don't have to go there again. And it took a long time for you to communicate that it was safe or it's safe to go there. So we must not allow this thing to go beyond what we have seen. You see, so that kind of commission is very important, and a commission that opens its doors and listen to what grievance people have can be very, very helpful. Wow. We are against secession, we are against violence, we are for peace.
Fantastic.
How do we establish that peace? Let's begin to talk. Let's find out and let's talk.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And let's find out in a transparent manner that reassures everybody, because the people are confused. We don't know what is happening. That's the reality.
Finally, you have elections in a few days. Good luck. How optimistic are you that you would win?
Well, my record speaks for itself. When I became president of the National House of Chiefs, I committed myself to serving the best interests of chieftaincy and the people. My objective was to enhance the honor, the image, the dignity, and the reverence, okay, with which the institution was held, and make it relevant to the needs of the people. And that means development orientation, okay? Our people don't eat customs. You see what I'm saying? They don't eat culture, okay? Without development, they can't enjoy these things. So we have been working very hard as chiefs to be part of the development process, the peace of this country, and the records are there. We've modernized, our meeting place, one of the best I can tell you in the country. Okay, we've started digitizing our records even before government started. We have our website. Those things were not there in the past. We are codifying laws, customary laws, lines of succession. All of that happening. Even more importantly, key new initiatives of National House of Chiefs leading a process to bring all African traditional leaders together in what can become an Africa Traditional Leaders Union, parallel to the AU, because we think that the chiefs have a stronger capacity to bring the people together, to promote love among Africans, mutual understanding, than the politicians. So we want to come in and complement what they are doing to bring Africa together, so we can, through our numbers, numbers are very important these days. China owes out of its strength to its numbers. And when we come together, we are 1.2 billion, second one to China.
Amazing.
So I think I've done well enough. The record speaks for itself. And
I think
my people appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
We've been speaking to the president of the National House of Chiefs, who would up for re-election, Togbe Afede XIV. Is the Agbogbomefia of the Asogli traditional state, and he's been talking to us on a wide variety of issues. Chieftaincy, we've been discussing economics, business, and national cohesion. Thank you for watching this special edition of The Point of View. We'll be with you next time. Bye-bye.